All right, guys. So it's a couple minutes past the hour. I think it's a good time to get started. We are super excited to bring you this webinar entitled You Match Now What? Dustyn's going to be taking you through everything you need to figure out to be a great intern, a great resident. I'm going to be giving a little bit of a talk to help you guys understand exactly what you should be doing, particularly for you prelims out there. But for now, I'm actually going to turn it over to Dustyn and let him get started. Excuse me, on our webinar, You Match Now What? Dustyn, take it away.
All right. Thank you, CEO. I appreciate it. Now, I just realized I got the boop boop. My phone that I dialed in on. So if I accidentally get disconnected, I will call back in. All right. So I am Dr. Dustyn Williams. Most of you probably know who I am by now, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But I do want to give you a little background of what I've done in my career, so you know that I'm someone you should listen to. I, until January, was a clerkship director in internal medicine at the Baton Rouge General, and I was the de facto APD while Dr. Robichaud was taking some time in Connecticut as the APD at Baton Rouge General, but I was always core faculty, and I was a full-time hospitalist. As of January, I have resigned that post, but over the last decade, I've spent a lot of time learning what it is to be a good resident and a good student. And unlike most people who are humans, I have no children, no spouse. I have nothing but medical education. I am a lifelong medical educator. I left clinical practice and the residency there to continue to pursue OnlineMedEd full-time, realizing the impact I could have through OnlineMedEd would be greater than the individual impact I had. Now, I do miss clinical practice and all the residents I left behind, but now I'm committed to helping everyone get ready for residency. Dr. Mehta is an interventional radiologist and also the program director, so he's going to give you some good information once I'm done. He's also the CEO of MedSchoolCoach, so for those people who know people who are not in their fourth year, who need some help doing well on their exams or have any questions about the interview process, contact MedSchoolCoach. I want to begin with this disclaimer. This is going to be a light graze at what I think you should know and the things I think you should do. I want to make it clear, though, that the things I advocate in this webinar and in the Intern Bootcamp and the stuff we have on OnlineMedEd isn't what I think should be. I advocate for the individual learner, not to change the system. I don't think that it's good that I have to give this talk and to give you the information that I do. But what I'm going to tell you isn't what you want to hear necessarily. It isn't what you believe, but it is what is. And to put into context, the stuff that we're going to talk about, I know transcends generations and specialties. At a graduation talk for a PA school, I gave my graduation speech, and in it includes some of the things that are in the Intern Bootcamp, and we'll touch on them lightly here. A retired physician, right? The dude practiced in the 40s, came up to me weeping, saying that he had never felt so well understood as the things I was saying on stage. Good social post. A fourth-year student got the Intern Bootcamp and the Intern Guide. The book arrived at her parents' house where she had it delivered. Her parents were physicians, ready to retire, 5 years or so. They began to read. Needless to say, it sparked some discussion. It turns out that the things that plague interns are the same things year after year. And it doesn't matter what specialty you're in, because intern year, prelim, transition, whatever, the same problems are faced over and over and over again. So everything I'm about to tell you is true regardless of what you're going into. But as we go through this process, I want you to remember three things. First, how hard you train, at least if you focus on the right things, will determine how good of a physician you will be. Residency is the time to try and fail, but it's best if you show up knowing how to practice the right way. Number two, life, different than medical school, is about people, the good and the bad. Talk more about that as we go on. And the third thing is the only thing you can control is yourself. Very early on, I felt it my duty to fight injustice, to correct every patient that called a surgeon in scrubs a nurse because it was a she. But I quickly realized that I, as an individual, was not going to change racism in the South. And if everyone attending this webinar right now were to get together to go after the geriatric population, a generation where it was inappropriate for a woman to be outside the home, to try to convince them that it's sexist, we probably wouldn't be successful. And so very quickly I realized it was more about getting the learner prepared for what's going to come at them. If you're in the South and you aren't white, get ready for that perspective. If you are a woman who is a doctor, know that the old population isn't doing it to discredit you, so don't take it to heart. Those are just two examples, but they're extreme, they're very sensitive issues. So what I'm going to teach you here is not necessarily PC, although I'm going to try to keep it at a high level so we don't get into the details. And the good thing is I resigned. I'm not tethered to a university, a med school, a hospital, a program. So I can tell you everything I know. I do want to caveat this with, I love the Baton Rouge General. Internal medicine residency program is a great place. I left to pursue OnlineMedEd. The things that I'm going to tell you are not my experience there, but my experience across the board with thousands of people that I've helped. And final disclaimer, I want to try to sell you something because I spent a decade of my life figuring out what's the right thing. What do you need as you begin intern year? And at the end, I hope I'll convince you that it's worth it to know what I teach you to know, and maybe you'll buy them. So be prepared for the sell at the end. And with that, let's begin the talk. I like to start off all my graduation speeches with this. What's the difference between May 1st and July 1st? Now, everyone pursuing their MD and DO will say, 2 letters. Graduation usually happens in May, and orientation to residency happens in July. In reality, though, 2 months. Turns out who you are now will be the exact same person you are at orientation unless you take active steps to change it. And just to put into perspective, consider the moment you opened your matched envelope and you realized where you were going to spend the next 3 years of your life or more. So the clouds part, sunshine come on your face, infusing you with knowledge, the earth open up, and the history of all of medicine flow through your veins. No, the envelope opened. So will it be true at graduation. Nothing special happens in graduation. Instead, how hard you train, how well you practice will determine what happens. When people are stressed, they do not rise to some superhuman character. They don't get infused with new skills they never knew they had. When stressed, and in residency you will be stressed, you are reduced to your basest form of training. It's why people who are unprepared freeze in danger. And I will promise that one day of internship, the autonomy, the responsibility, the sheer burden of your decision matters, your signature matters, the orders you place are done, will be worth a month as a student. And you will be distressed 1 month's worth of what you're used to every day. unless you start off prepared. All right, so let's start off with some misconceptions. These are the things that people aren't going to like me to talk about. I heard this a lot when I graduated. Since we all graduated medical school, we all start at the same level. We're all equal. Bullshit. 10% bad rate. I'm starting to call in. P equals MD, but P does not equal excellence. And you'll see this in your cohort. Some people will show up ready to dominate, and they will soar. They'll take off. They'll diverge into excellence, and they'll keep getting better, and they'll keep getting more responsibility and autonomy, and they'll start winning awards, while others trip over themselves. They have trouble getting going. And by the time they finally start to improve, residency is almost over. The idea is that there's going to be some of those people who are still catching up, figuring out at month 6 what someone else knew at month 0. And the divergent path is difficult to make up. In residency, you'll never have more of an opportunity to grow, to try, to fail, to see if you can succeed. But if you don't start off the right way, if you don't have the baseline knowledge and skills necessary to succeed in residency, which are very different than the ones to succeed in medical school, you're going to have a tough time. Second misconception, orientation is where I'll really start my training, right? Now, this is actually a disconnect in the system. The hospitals or programs that you're going to serve have a duty and an ACGME requirement to check boxes. So orientation is a hurricane of lessons, talks, and signatures saying that you got your login and your badge, and you know about burnout. But at the end of the week, you still don't know your login codes and where the bathroom is. You think appropriately, I got through medical school. I did all the things I was supposed to do. I got my scores, I got honors, I got high score on STEP. I'm going to start residency. But you had to do a bunch of shit you didn't want to. Like all of those things, all of the specialties that you're not doing, you had to learn. And that was like the dues you paid. And now you matched, taking it easy, recharging. And once I get to residency, they're going to tell me what I need to know. Turn it around. Residencies say, you graduated medical school. You finished all of the LCME requirements. You are efficient, effective at note writing, history taking, physical examination, clinical reading. You are ready to hit the ground running. Here's 7 patients in the pager. Good luck. That disconnect is not intentional, but it's real. Very few programs have recognized this and let there be a warm-up period. Most programs don't have that. You show up day 1, you start. And this is going to piss people off a lot, right? I think that the ACGME has done a really good job. The last iteration of their rules. 1 day off in 7, not an average. 80-hour work week, not an average. Just plus 20 to 40 hours of studying. That's on your own time. Team caps. That's great, especially since we went from no work hour restriction 15 years ago to 80, to interns can only work 16 hours because we're truck drivers, back to you can do an overnight call, because if you want to stay and get that procedure, if you want to stay and take care of that sick patient, you can. Awesome. The problem with this is that over the past 15 years, the rules have changed so much that who trains you, the attending, will have a different perspective on what residency is supposed to look like. And number 2, life is about people, good and bad. Who do you think you interact with day to day? Residency handbook, the ACGME rules, all the rainbows and sunshine that say let's protect patients and residents? No. Every day you interact with people, and people have souls, they've got egos, spouses, children, debt. People who are in education aren't necessarily always there for the right reason. And even if they are, they can have a shitty day. And they may not like you for some dumb reason. And the danger of this is that no one says, I'm an asshole. I'm going to go after those residents. The old days of yelling in the OR and throwing scalpels are gone. Those people are banned, right? And that's good. Those people don't belong in education. They don't belong anywhere, frankly. But the problem is that some people still have a shitty week. They get dumped, divorced. They realize, I can't make my mortgage payment this week, so I need to pick up some extra shifts. They get dumped on with 47 extra responsibilities from their medicine group or the hospital that they never expected. So now they can't wait to get out of rounds because, hey, I got all this stuff I got to do before I get home, get yelled at by my husband is waiting at home. And those people keep it inside. They're still yelling, throwing scalpels, but only inside. And you don't know that you've done anything wrong. You don't know that you failed their expectations. They know they can't say, stay late and finish your work, see an extra patient. That's a human being. They have to say 80-hour work week, one day off and 17 cabs. So I'm not saying that you should kowtow to every person's every whim, but you have to keep in mind that some people have an expectation that they either can't or won't tell you. And asking for feedback is useful. But wouldn't it be better if you just knew what they were expecting, met their expectations, succeeded? Never having to worry about whether or not they're screaming inside. All right, changing to a more positive issue. This is more conceptual. Stress. Okay. The problem with perception of residency is that everyone who gets through residency got through residency, but they had one experience. Their experience is their only perspective, and so the assumption is that everyone has had the same experience. Of course, they haven't. They don't know that they were missing out, and they never do it again a different way to compare it. So some people will say, oh, you'll learn all this stuff by October. Sure. Or you learned it the wrong way and have to unlearn everything by May so you can start learning it the right way by your second October. Those who start off with the easy stuff mastered start outperforming their cohort faster, get more responsibility, and grow further. And the key to this is eustress. Eustress is good. If you do all the right things and you're able to take care of 10 patients in a day and you only have 4, well, you're bored, right? You don't do anything. You don't lose, but you don't grow either. If you can only take care of 4 patients and you're given 10, that's distress. That's too much work. You freak out. All you do is panic. You can't build a house if you're drowning. The key is to place yourself in eustress. You want to push yourself just to the edge of your boundaries so you adapt and push again. Think of an 11-year-old twig of an Arnold Schwarzenegger. 11-year-old twig to Conan the Barbarian. That didn't happen in a month. That took rigorous exercise, continuous performance, pushing the limits until he was an international champion. So too do you need to do that with your mental training. Here's the problem. Eustress changes as you grow. So if you start off without having any of what I'm about to tell you about, you may only be able to handle 4 patients like you did on the subway. And it's going to take you a while to build yourself up. If you start off with all the right skills, and since year after year it's the same problem in internship, no matter what your specialty, if you just learn from the people who came before you, you figure out all the stuff, you don't waste time, energy, sleep, mental well-being on figuring out the things that have already been figured out. You can focus all of your attention and energy on the things that help you grow. And as you develop, you have to keep pushing yourself. Number 3, only you know you. You need to be able to say, this is too much work for me, I can't do it, but I want help on getting faster. I'm not getting enough work, please give me more responsibility. If you don't, really good educators, really good seniors will recognize it, but mostly what's going to happen is they'll try to split the work evenly. even if the two interns on a team aren't even. So you have to constantly demand more of yourself. What you want to have happen is persistent eustress, pushing your boundaries, expanding your abilities and your influence. And so by the time you graduate, you've mastered everything. Boredom won't help with that. But worse, distress is the environment crushing your abilities. All you're doing is barely surviving, and you can't be there. You avoid distress by 1, identifying you're there and asking for help, and 2, showing up day 1, having the skills necessary to avoid it. Okay, but key to success is the recharge. Anybody who graduates from medical school and says medical school wasn't the hardest thing they've ever done has either survived cancer or is lying. And even then, it's probably med school. I promise you that residency is harder. Everything that you've done, how hard you've worked, how you think you've suffered, you have not even begun. Residency is way harder. And so you must begin with a fully charged emotional battery. And that is because there's a huge switch in the way you perceive what's going on. In medical school, the focus was the grade. Doing well on the test, getting a high score so you can get into residency. Nobody says, I don't give a fuck about grades. Everybody cares, even if they say it. And you know that that's the only currency in medical school. But as soon as you graduate, there's no test, there's no score, there's only effectiveness. How well you interact with other people, your peers, your senior, your attending, your patients, the ancillary staff. And so being effective, taking care of your patients, running your team, being a leader demands a lot from you. And it's true, you will never, again in your life, have as much freedom of time as you do right now between match and orientation. I quit clinical practice. Still work 7 days a week. This is the time for you to do things you won't be able to do again. Take that trip to Thailand, Europe, see a friend you haven't seen in a while because med school took them from you. Residency is going to take them again. Do the things that make you whole. You need to charge the battery. Butt to the butt. Consider your cell phone. If you plug that phone in and charge it to 99% and take it out of the plug, it lasts about just as long as if you left that phone plugged in for 2 weeks. It's 200% charge. As soon as you disconnect it, it begins discharging. This period of time, from match to orientation, you must ensure you have a full battery. You have to start residency mentally well. But I'm going to argue that it's worth taking the phone off the charger, burning down some charge to maintain your skills, than plugging it back in. Because you can't overcharge it. You can't save up energy. And you'll see people who do that. People who just charge only for these 2 months, 3 months. What ends up happening is they pull their phone off the charger, realize they're behind, and are turning up their screen full brightness, watching YouTube videos, trying to catch up, and their phone burns out. So too their mental state. Whereas people who maintain their skills and learn the things that are going to be necessary for success in residency, when they get to residency, they say, oh, I know this. Turn off their phone, put it in their pocket, and wait for the phone call. You can't overcharge your phone. You can't overcharge your emotional battery, but you can demand more of it if you don't do the right things now. Changing gears a little bit, talk about perfect practice. Malcolm Gladwell says, in order to be an expert, you must do 10,000 hours at a thing. In my welcome to residency speech to new interns, part of my talk is a story about Marco Andretti, baseball player. And he knew he wanted to be a baseball player from the age of 2. Practiced 2 hours a day, every day. the age of 35, he had never played for a baseball team, not Little League, not JV middle school, not varsity college, not minor leagues afterwards. He practiced his swings, his pitches, his catches every day. You picture a baseball bat, you can imagine where I'm holding it. Swing, hit the ball, the big end. Good old Marco would flip it around and hold the thick end and bat backwards. Practiced 10,000 hours, didn't he? But he practiced the wrong thing the wrong way, and he got really good at sucking at hitting. That's, of course, a fabricated story. I made it up. But the point is that practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Practicing a lot the wrong way makes you really good at sucking. Let's check out the hours in residency given that 80-hour work week. Let's say your residency is nice, you get that extra week off for the holidays. 3 years, 80 by 48 by 3. Wow, about 10,000 hours, huh? The astute of you out there will say, actually, that seems like a lot more than 10,000 hours. How many more is it? Given an 80-hour work week, it's 20 weeks extra. The assumption is, we've got 5 months baked into residency, right? So why would I bother spending time figuring it out for day one when I've got 5 months to figure it out once I start? Because the person who starts practicing the right way achieves mastery far sooner than the person who flounders. And the person who figures it out in the first 5 months has to spend the next 5 months undoing all the bad habits. Or worse, never identifies the things that they've used to survive are actually bad habits, and then they permeate for their life. Wouldn't it be better, instead of floundering for 5 months and then undoing bad habits, you started with the right habit and you finished residency 5 months early, fully expanding into an expert and behaving like an attending in your 3rd year? That's the argument I'd make. The way that you do that is show up day one with the skills and the knowledge necessary to succeed. This is what everybody who graduates medical school thinks they've done, right? They've achieved, we beat med school, boom, did it. Not really. This is more likely. You worked your ass off 1st and 2nd year. Then you studied less, but put in more hours in your clerkships. And you kept learning and learning and learning, and then 4th year hit. Step 2 is done, interviews, math, and then, oh, hey, orientation. So for the people who just recharge, this is your path. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. And it's true. And most people coast because med school was fucking hard and you want a break. When you just coast, you lose all your skills. When you hit residency, you're expected to have LCME, all of those things checked. You're ready to go, but you're not. So you spend the first 5 months floundering. When you finally figure it out, slow curve towards excellence. What you think is going to happen, however, is this. You think that arriving at orientation will give you the training necessary to bring you back up to where you were. That doesn't happen. The reality is not that the residency programs don't know this. It's that you graduated from med school, you should be at the level you were at in July of your 4th year. The way you keep it there is mitigating the skills decline. Gentle touches throughout matched orientation. That impossible line is what would happen if all you did was study, study, study like you always did. That wouldn't work because you would have the skills and the knowledge, but you'd be burned out before you started. There has to be a balance between recharging the emotional battery and maintaining your skills. And this is what I argue for. Couple hours a week. Remind yourself of the things that you know. Learn the things you think you know, but you don't. Don't spend a lot of time. Go to Thailand. have a beer, go see your friend. But hey, Wednesday at 1 p.m., flip through your notes, re-engage that material so that you know it. You don't lose it. You're not trying to learn anything new here. You just don't want to forget what you already know. And I'll argue, there are things that you think you know, skills that have been successful up to this point, but with the huge shift from finite games getting scores on tests to infinite games being effective taking care of patients, there are things you haven't thought of. And I'll explain some of those things that are. The last thing is the major thing, right? That's you. It's the third arch. Only you demand excellence of yourself. Only you are responsible for your own excellence. What you see on the screen is a sample of a medicine week. Now, of course, one of these days would be a day off, 1 day off in 7, but you get the idea. The yellow bars is to show up, 6 o'clock. Wake up at 5, at the hospital by 6. See your patients. The blue is morning report. Sit in the front row. No one's evaluating you. Most of the upper levels are running it anyway. Then you get back to the floor. And if you've got a good senior before the tending rounds, you'll spend 30 minutes flipping cards, making sure that you know everything and know what to say on rounds. And there's attending rounds for 2 hours. But those times, those 30 minutes and 2 hours, they're not yours. They're split between your other intern, the resident who's seeing extra patients because you're not able, the student's patient. So you really only get about a third to half of that time. Just think about that. The dedicated time each day that you're getting specific feedback and evaluation from someone else is an hour and a half. Now, of course, your senior is there for the rest of the day. If you need help, you can ask. But that senior is also taking care of another intern, 3 med students, and all the patients you can't see. So who's keeping an eye on you? You are. That's a lot of white space. And there's a lot of things you're going to do. Write notes, talk to nurses, talk to patients, things that no one is going to see you do. You have to remember this key phrase: sloppiness metastasizes. If you take shortcuts, no one's going to know. In fact, your performance may be the same, but you'll know. And instead of growing your abilities and your influence, what you're going to do is start letting go a little bit. And it's going to suck, because in the beginning, you're not used to the methods, the features, the flow of the day, and it's going to take forever. And you're like, this is so much work, I don't want to do it, because you're going to be stressed and you're adding on extra work at the beginning. But no one is going to call you out on it unless it's so flagrant that you're deficient. That's the most dangerous. You do things that aren't deficient. They're just not good. And you never know. And so all that white space means you have to maintain your own excellence. You have to maintain your own standard. When you get tired, do the right thing anyway. All right. So that was a little ditty about how I approach the matched orientation. And the key here is you want to do enough that gets you ready for internship, because no one else will prepare you. You want to recharge fully, but not overcharge. Spend some of that charge maintaining your skills up to this point. It's going to be a huge shift. Effectiveness is about people. And that means you're going to have to deal with sick, wounded people, as well as sick, wounded egos of your superiors. Most people are not malignant. Most people are not out to get you. But people are people, and not everyone is fully on your side either. And lastly, because you're in residency, you can train hard on the right things. And the things that people don't pay attention to, you should pay attention to. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Sahil to pick it up and give us a perspective from a program director.
So Dustyn just went through everything that you need to do from today until you get to intern year, right? But what about once you get to intern year, and why is this important? And that's what I'm trying to get at, and that's what I want to kind of tell you guys from the perspective of somebody who has now been out of residency for a long time, I mean, out of med school for 15 plus years at this point, and has trained a whole bunch of people in different specialties. So initially diagnostic radiology, now interventional radiology. I'm hoping to give you guys a little bit of a view on what it feels like to be a program director and an attending, actually, just at a hospital, who sees interns, sees residents every day, and what that means to the attending and how that affects patient care, right? So the first thing I want to say on that, if you go to the next slide, is, I'm relying on you. I'm the attending, but I'm actually relying on you as the intern, as the resident, as eventually the fellow. You are given enormous responsibility, like, probably responsibility beyond what anybody should really give you. But the reality is we give you that responsibility. I'm in a procedurally heavy field. I do procedures all day long, complex procedures, simple procedures, the whole gamut. Things on dying patients who are going to die on my table, to cosmetic things, people who want to make their legs look better. I do that entire gamut of procedures on a daily basis. Yet I trust my fellow, and he trusts his resident, and they trust their intern to sort of get stuff done for that patient, right? So we are really relying on you as attending physicians at academic hospitals, partially because some of us are lazy, but the reality is that we actually really want to train the next generation of physicians. And, medicine, right? You go back to the see one, do one, teach one, right? You guys may have seen one so far. You probably haven't done one. Let's talk about a central line, right? You've probably seen a central line being placed in the ICU at this point if you're an MS4. Maybe you haven't placed one yet, and you're kind of itching to do that. And you're going to do that in intern year. And guess what? As a resident, a year later, you're going to be teaching the intern how to do that. And that sort of hierarchical learning, or that see one, do one, teach one learning, is so embedded in medicine that it's so important that at every single step when you're learning, that you actually absorb everything you can, right? So every single time you see something done, absorb as much of it as you can. Because at the end of the day, at hospitals around the country, we're really relying on the interns and the residents to do that everyday work. Like that, it's huge. Without them, the whole ecosystem would truly collapse. So it's really important for you guys out there as MS4s, as you are transitioning to interns, to do exactly what Dustyn said, which is to, make sure that your knowledge does not slip. Continually understand, continually learn. Don't cruise towards the end here, because intern year, if you go into intern year in June 1st or July 1st and say, hey, this is when I'm going to start learning, your patients are going to suffer and your attendings are not going to be happy with you. So that's one thing I'll say, right? I'm relying on you. As an attending physician at a hospital, I'm truly relying on interns and residents to help me with my daily workflow. All right, so what else? Next slide. What else am I thinking of, right? What else do I kind of tell my interns, residents, people who I'm training? I say that there are a few keys to success for you as an intern. And the reality is that you as an intern need to understand the big picture of everything that's going on in the hospital, right? So part of what you want to learn as an intern is how to take care of a dying patient, how to talk to a family member of somebody who's sick, how to get informed consent, how to do all these different things that are sort of big picture medicine related, right? How to have end of life discussions. These are big picture things that you need to learn. And the more you see, again, as an MS4 going into intern year, as an intern going into residency, and then residency going into your career, the more you see of these discussions, the more you understand these big picture things, the better you're going to be as a future physician. Yet, as an intern, all those small details are incredibly important, right? So you, as the intern, are 100% responsible for the day-to-day of that patient, right? Are the right medications ordered? Did the test get ordered? Is the patient NPO the night before a big procedure? Guess who has to put that order in? You do, as the intern, right? And if you don't do it, what happens? That procedure might get delayed the next day. So these are the small details that you really have to be on top of. And so this is a little bit to scare you, which is to say that as an intern, and again, as an MS4 going into intern year, you really need to understand the big picture of medicine, but you also need to have a system to get all the small details in place. Dustyn can tell you the very best interns are those who know every single detail about their patients, right? They're on top of their patients. They know, you know what, that patient's getting a colonoscopy tomorrow. I've already ordered the prep. I've already ordered the NPO status. Like they're on top of it before anybody asks you to do that, because you're thinking ahead. You know what the next steps are. And that's how you become good. So, what advice do I have to give for those M4s, for you guys who are still out there? I would say, as you transition into intern year, for every single situation that you see, think about what's the big picture learning you can get, but then also think about what are the small details you get out of that. What is it that that patient just went through? And if it's an end of life discussion, that's a big picture thing. But if it's something as simple as understanding the morphine titration in a dying patient to get their respiratory status better, that's a small detail, right? So you got to learn everything on every step of the way. Lots of learning, as you guys know. As Dustyn said, residency infinitely harder than medical school, unfortunately. Okay, and my last piece of advice, and I think this is actually the best piece of advice that I can give you. So you guys out there, all 400 people who are listening are going into a bunch of different specialties, right? Some of you are going into internal medicine, some of you are going to interventional radiology, others are going into surgery. Somebody's going to say, I'm going to be a cardiologist. Somebody else is going to say, I'm going to be a pediatric gastroenterologist. Here's the best piece of advice that I can give you as an MS4 who now has April, May, June, 3 or so months left at medical school, which is go see everything you can right now. And it's easy to sort of say, okay, I'm going to go to Thailand for 4 weeks. And I get that urge. Trust me, I understand it. I was there. I probably did it. But in between those Thailand trips, what I would say is you should go see everything that you've never seen before, right? So if you're going to go be, let's say, a general surgeon, I want you to go see a cardiac cath, because you're never going to get that opportunity again. If you're going to be an ED doc, go see a colonoscopy, because again, you're never going to get that opportunity again to see these things that are everyday things that your patients may go through, but your specialty doesn't necessarily deal with. And it's actually uber easy to do this as a medical student, because as a medical student, the entire hospital, the entire sort of university is at your disposal. You can email anybody and show up and just say, hey, I'm a med student, I just kind of wanted to see this, and everybody will welcome you with open arms. Once you become a resident and an intern, you're not going to have time for that. You're not going to have time to get away from sort of your everyday rotations and what you have to do in the hospital. So no matter what specialty you're going into, I really think that the end of 4th year is your opportunity to go just see everything that you can. And I'm not even talking about go down to the pathology lab, because honestly, I have no idea what a pathologist does on an everyday basis. And I'm actually suffering from it. I do biopsies every single day, biopsies of lesions, transjugular biopsies, whatever it might be. And I send these slides over to pathology. In retrospect, I would actually love to understand, what is it that a pathologist needs to see, after I do that biopsy? How do they process that specimen? What is it that they look at? How big a chunk do they need? All these questions are actually difficult for me to get answers to unless I now go down to pathology. And now as an attending, I have a little bit of time for that. But as a resident and as a fellow, I definitely didn't have time to do that. So as a med student, this is your chance. So that's, I think, the best piece of advice I can give somebody who's an MS4 going into intern year, which is to utilize those last couple of months and really, honestly, exploit your medical school. Go see everything you can. You paid circa 200 grand for your education. Make the most of it. I know, again, it's easy to go to Thailand. I would do it too, and I'm fine with you doing it for a little bit, but I think when you get back in between, you should really take this opportunity to go see as much as you can. So those are some of my pieces of advice that I can give you guys who are going into intern year.
All right. So with that, I hope you believe that we're telling you the truth. And now everyone's going to go cut their Thailand trip a little short. Right? Don't necessarily do that. Remember, it is a balance of recharge and mitigating skills decline. Emphasis on recharge, but also ensure that you don't lose those skills. So I say, well, thank you very little. You know, I've already planned on not doing any of that. So now I'm sufficiently scared and I'm worried about starting on July 1. What the hell do I do? Well, wouldn't it be convenient if someone dedicated their entire career to answering that one question? Good for you. I did. All right, so I told you I was going to try to sell you. Here's the sell. What I actually had my incoming interns do at Baton Rouge General Internal Medicine Residency Program. You matched, next week you get a phone call from me. Said, hey, you got a free account on OME. Here's what I want you to do. We recently introduced Case X, so this changed a little bit. What I want you to see is that for any internship you're doing, there is medical knowledge and life skills. Once you get into the specialty, and you are a PGY2, the things diverge. What you have to know how to do changes, and that becomes experiential. Intern year is fairly contained in a couple of domains. What I asked the incoming interns to do was PACE for residency. PACE is our learning paradigm: prime, acquire, challenge, and force. Notes, video questions, flashcards. But I have it changed a little bit. PACE for residency is read the notes, write your, watch the video, take more notes, do the questions, take more notes. Then take all that chicken scratch, consolidate it into a clean presentation. Teach yourself as you write it out. Find your gaps, and then go to your specialty board review material. Fill in those gaps. Do it one more time into a moleskin. I did this when I was first building OnlineMedEd v0.1 back in the day. I was reading, learning, and I was writing it down. I had a leather-bound book full of printed out PDFs, folded in half. I took that book with me, and every grand rounds or afternoon delights, what we called morning report at Tulane, when I learned a pearl, I put it on the page where it belonged. What happens there is you remind yourself of the core foundations. That's what PACE is. You teach yourself the stuff that you didn't know that you now need to. You've repeated it multiple times so it sticks. You have a book you can carry around with you, so whenever you learn something new, attach it to that page, and it's clean and orderly so you can use it to teach. For those of you who have done PACE already, and you're like, man, I've done those already, I don't need that anymore, Case X is for you. Case X are real cases, real patients, real residents answered real questions, and now it's up to you to do that. Case X is more advanced. You really need to know the foundations and PACE in order for you to really benefit from Case X, but the fours who used our program already, Case X is specifically designed for you, answering real questions. What you're going to feel is you've finished the physical, you've extracted the data from the EMR, you're sitting at the computer terminal, no multiple choice questions. You have an option. Turn around and ask your senior for help, put in the orders yourself. That's where Case X gets you. We have material for every internship. Separately, Intern Bootcamp. This is the life skills. These are all of the things you haven't learned yet, even if you think you have. I promise you haven't, because the skill set that was successful as a medical student, that got you the grade, that got you well liked, the finite games are different moving forward. I am personally extraordinarily proud of this. The ACP called me. They said, hey, high burnout rates, we should make an intern boot camp. They watched my boot camp and then said, why would we remake it? He already made it. Called me and said, hey, do you mind if we recommend your boot camp? And I was like, no, I don't mind that at all. And I want you to feel that I'm proud of that, because my entire career has not been into treating patients. It's been to coaching residents to be successful and to make the most out of their residency. I've seen all the failures and the successes. I've had them myself. I know the pitfalls. And in that boot camp are things that no one else will be able to teach you. So if nothing else, the life skills in the boot camp are the things that are going to make your life in residency better. It also helps to have a little medical knowledge on the side. So what I recommend everybody do is either pace residency or cases. Do that now, still like med school mode. And then right before residency begins, boot camp. Spend a month on it. 15-minute videos. There's only like 30 of them, one a day. Right? There's no pace, there's no notes, there's no questions. It's just the life skills that you need to succeed. And if you do that, I promise you'll show up on day one already better off, already on a trajectory that brings you to excellence. Light years ahead of the person who just coasts and hopes that they're going to figure it out on time. That is, you matched. Now what? With the remaining time, I think we'll take some questions.
Yeah, Dustyn, so there's some questions out there, and there are definitely a lot of great questions, and keep them coming. We're going to try to answer a few of them. You know, here's a question that just came in, and Dustyn, maybe I'll shoot this one to you, which is says, are there any procedures that we should master before residency? Starting an IV, putting in a Foley, doing a TIPS, anything you think about?
Doing a TIPS. I think that's probably not for intern year. That's about third year in interventional radiology. I would say no, unless you're in New York. New York healthcare system is good and bad in the sense that there's a dichotomy of nursing versus doctors, and they're unionized, and so the physicians the interns end up starting lines, drawing labs, and transporting patients. I think in every other healthcare system, procedures really aren't where you should be. You want to know how to do them. Unless you're a surgeon, in which case the only procedure you should know how to do is tie your knots. And you should have already tied 50,000 of them by now attached to your scrub. I would say no. The procedures of your profession will be taught to you early on. If you have the opportunity, as Sahil said, to get into to see something you'll never see again, but that translates into you get to do some procedures because you're about to graduate and you got a cool resident, definitely go do that. But mastery, no. You'll just have the chance to hold the needle while it drains some fluid.
Yeah. I mean, I echo that. I'm not sure you can really master any procedure during your fourth year, because what you should master, and this is coming from somebody who's a proceduralist and does procedures all day long, every day, is setting up for a procedure. And so if you watch and understand a good proceduralist, they will reach to their back table and know exactly where everything is, and it's laid out in order. And so that's what I would say, like even starting an IV, like having everything that you need laid out in order, ready to go, is how you're going to actually do it well. So if you're fumbling around to go find the tourniquet while you have the needle in your hand, while you have a gauze and trying to get the, the tubing together, you're going to fail. So you're not going to be able to master any procedure necessarily as a fourth year, but what you can do maybe is watch how they're done and watch how a table is set up, right? Figure out these intangible things, because that's what's going to make eventually procedural things much easier. Dustyn, we got a question. Actually, this question's come up a couple times. How do you deal with overnight call?
So I did overnight calls as a student. I was like, whatever, that's what it is. That's why I can't sleep now. I have actually pretty bad insomnia because I got really good at being awake for 36, 40 hours, whatever. How you do it is you do it. There's a couple of ways of approaching it. Tulane actually lost this. We had a lockout period between 3 and 6 where no new patients could be admitted. That was catch-up time or nap time. Now, if you are in medicine, hopefully you have an intern teammate that you kind of hand off, you take a nap, and one person covers the other. If you're a surgical intern, man, that fucking blows, right? Like you get called in, you get called in. I think that the biggest thing, and this is these unspoken expectations, your attendings will not want this to happen, but especially if you're doing a procedural specialty, like pulling out chest tubes or cutting anybody, you need to be able to tap out and say, I can't do this. It's unsafe. Like, and you have to go approach that attending later and explain what happened and then apologize. But how you handle overnight calls, do it. And then the first one sucks, and then the second one sucks, the third one sucks last, and then your 50th is like 36 hours, what? And then it's like hour 40, still haven't fallen asleep, and you're like, shit, now I'm good at this. It's really tough, but don't be afraid of it. Do it. And remember that you have a senior. And if your senior doesn't pick up the phone, you have an attending. So you're not by yourself. You're just autonomously more yourself than you would be during the day.
Awesome. We got another question here that says, what are some ways that you can shine during your first year of residency?
It's called the Intern Bootcamp. It's about 30 lessons, 15 minutes apiece. It's a lot of things, right? You have to know your shit, know your patients, be able to present them well, document well. It is the Intern Bootcamp, and this is not like a plug for the cell, but really it comes down to managing yourself, managing others, managing your team, understanding the hierarchy, communication in the form of documentation and presentation. It's just all of the things that is in the Intern Bootcamp is what makes a successful intern. It doesn't matter what specialty you're in. There's so many things that answers that question, and they're all already made. Like, literally, the Intern Bootcamp initially was created by me because I was tired of saying the same thing month 6 that I did month 1 because I haven't rotated that intern yet. The same things that come up over and over and over and over and over again. I was tired of saying them, so I was like, here's a video you can watch. And then it turns out that that's true across the board. So literally, that's why that program exists, to help you shine as an intern. Because if you do those things and someone else doesn't, people are going to be like, damn, that's awesome. And that guy's like, what's wrong with you by comparison? Right? But really, like, the person who didn't do it just like is like everyone else, and you're way above.
I mean, I'll add one thing, which is I think that an awesome first year resident is efficient. Like efficiency, and I'm sure this is definitely in boot camp. Efficiency is what like makes or breaks somebody, because the reality is that while we expect you to know things, while we expect you to make medical decisions, much of what you do as an intern, particularly in those first couple of months, it's not necessarily to make groundbreaking medical decisions, right? There are seniors, there are attendings over you who are going to be able to bounce those ideas. You're going to be able to bounce those ideas off of and ask, hey, should I do this or should I order this? And hopefully there are enough checks and balances in the system that you don't do anything stupid. That said, your efficiency is what will make you shine. And so that means getting your notes done, having your orders in, just if you're a surgical intern, collecting those vital signs quickly in the morning and like being able to present them right off the bat. Like those are the things that make, I would say, seniors and attendings look at somebody and say, that guy's got it. That guy or girl has it. He or she is efficient. They know how to get shit done. And, I can't stress that enough, because if you're bumbling, if you're fumbling, it's going to suck, and even if you have the most medical knowledge in your entire class and you're slow, you don't get your shit in, you haven't signed your notes, you haven't, signed them off, that's what's going to piss people off, and that's what's going to get you unnoticed or noticed in the wrong way, let's say.
Efficiency, though, is also having your shit together, right? The Thiel's talking about getting your notes done, and when someone asks you a question and you're ready, right? That is preparedness. And so it may take you a long time to get prepared in the morning, but if you're ready with everything, patient tracker, data tracker, H&P minor, then it looks like you're effective because you took care of all your stuff early on in the day. So efficiency doesn't mean be fast. It means be fast in the perception of the people who are evaluating you. So that means taking a little bit extra time in the morning to get all your shit straight. And once you have it all straight, it's really easy to appear efficient, even though you know that you're cheating by taking a little bit extra time in the morning. Everybody thought I was super efficient, but really I would get in, as a senior, I would get in at 6 when you're supposed to get in at 7 or later. When I would get into a closet, I would hide, and I would look up all the patients, I would do my method. When I came onto the wards, it looked like I rolled in at 8 a.m. and we did resident rounds, and I knew everything. And everyone's like, oh, how do you know this already? And I didn't tell them. I've been here for 2 hours. So it's okay to be not efficient as long as you appear efficient at the end of the day.
All right. So one other question here. How do you present cases well and efficiently? So everybody's got to present cases no matter what. So how do you do it well? What's your secret, Dustyn? What are you looking for from your interns and residents?
So it's actually pretty easy. I have a video called The Path of Clinical Reasoning, which explains how you approach a patient. Start at point A to complaint. You do a bunch of shit, right? Like sexual history of the dead dog, and you take a red herring, and you're all after, and you find eventually what the answer or the realm is, right? You went from here to here. The circuitous route you took, don't take me down that route. I don't want to hear that. You know where you went. So when you began, you didn't know what was relevant because you didn't know where you're ending up. But when you present, you do know where you're going. So take me not on this path, take me on this one. That is the art of clinical reasoning, how to present an H&P, how to present on daily rounds, and how to present old patients as new. 4 videos in the Intern Bootcamp, which covers specifically that. And the biggest thing is, even if you listen to my way, which is obviously the right way, if someone else tells you to do something differently, do what you're told.
One of the most frustrating things that you guys are going to face as interns and residents and fellows is that every attending wants something slightly differently. And that's the reality of medicine. And so you got to learn quickly how to appease the attending that you're on with, or how to sort of get them to the information that they need. Dustyn just told you perfectly, right? Like, if somebody gave me this route to get to the diagnosis or the procedure that we're going to perform, I would strangle them. I hate them. That's not what I want. You know, I'm somebody who wants the direct answer. What are we getting to? But there are my partners and colleagues who may want a whole lot more information. So that's one of the most frustrating things I would say about internship and residency, is that you have to know your patient, you have to know your stuff, you have to know everything, and then you have to know how the attending wants it presented, or how the attending who you're working with likes the information fed to them. And hopefully you learn that if you're on medicine within the first day on rounds, within the first 3 patients, right? You see how that attending interacts with the resident and says, cut to the chase, or give me more info, and you kind of have to modulate that as you go. And you're going to work with a whole bunch of different people, you know, as you go. Obviously, surgery attendings, IR attendings, I want something very short, very succinct. Medicine attendings probably want a whole lot more information than I want. So you got to learn that. It's just part of training. And then when you get to be an attending, you get to decide what you want your interns and residents to tell you. So Dustyn, there's a bunch more questions here about PACE and CASEX, and you know, sort of what you should do. So I think it probably would benefit everybody for you just to go through one more time what you feel like they should do from now, April, MS4, to intern year. What do you want them to do?
Yeah, sure. The PACE for Residency video on the Intern Bootcamp is free. It actually highlights exactly what to do. We'll send out a link to all the attendees. What I expect you to do is, you know what specialty you're doing your internship in. General surgery, pediatrics, OB, medicine. Transition year is a little harder because it's kind of a sprinkling of everything. But what I suggest you do is go to the core MS3 content. If you're not familiar with it, haven't seen it lately, get a premium subscription for a short course. Decide which lessons you're going to do. Medicine's got 60, surgery's got 50, OB's got 40, PED's got 25. Do one a day. And one is about 2 hours, right? Read the notes, chicken scratch of your own notes. Watch the video, a separate set of chicken scratch. Do the challenge questions, separate set of chicken scratch. Take your chicken scratch and turn it into a clean note set. But then walk yourself through your own notes as though you were teaching it. When you go, oh, I don't actually know how that connection is made, or I don't want to know that detail, go look it up in a review source for that specialty. Medicine, it's MixUp. Fill in those gaps. One more time, take a moleskin, open it up to a page, translate all of that clean notes with the additions from your research onto the page. You do that once a day for your specialty. Takes about a month, maybe a month and a half, and then 20 days before orientation, Intern Bootcamp. 30 videos, 15 minutes a pop, real easy to get through. There's no notes, no questions. Just watch, learn, absorb, be like, oh, duh, obviously I know that, but you didn't until I told you. So PACE or residency is the medical knowledge content leading up to the 2-3 weeks before orientation starts. That's when you should really hammer in Intern Bootcamp. If you are the type of person who already did OnlineMedEd Premium, you're like, I've got all those notes already done. Now what do I do? Read through them once, do cases. Same thing, one a day, one every 3 days. Roll out a schedule so that you constantly make contact with medical content 3 weeks before bootcamp.
Awesome. So that's some great advice. Hoping everybody follows it, because then you can be a kick-ass intern, right? So we're coming up on the hour here. I think it's probably a good time to sort of wrap up. Hope everybody enjoyed this. I mean, I got some great information about it. Kind of excited to be an intern again, but not really. That would suck. Much happier to be where I am. I'm sure Dustyn's much happier to be where he is. But for you guys who are going through this, I mean, good luck. It's an awesome experience at the end of the day.
It is. That's actually really important, right? Like all of the fear I've instilled and the way you want to be bad about all that. You're going to live with a group of people for at least 3 years, and these people are going to be your family. Yeah, it's going to be hard. You're going to lose a patient. You're going to suck. You're going to do poor on an in-service exam. You're going to do great. You're going to do amazing. You're going to save lives. You're going to lose lives. It's totally worth it on the other side, right? If I didn't have OnlineMedEd, I wouldn't have left every practice. So I think that it is entirely worth all of the effort and all of the fear and all of the anxiety, because when you get good at it and it flows and you're no longer anxious, you just get excited about it, the payoff is huge. And I think I'll close with this. It's the same thing. It's the inscription on the back of the intern guide. It's something that I end all of my graduation speeches with. Whenever you're worried about yourself, or like you question whether your choice or whether you see someone happier than you at a time, or whatever, blah, 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 always remember why it is we do what we do. Cure the sick, mend the wounded, and comfort the dying. No better purpose than medicine. Good luck, guys.
Good luck, everybody. Good night. Take care.